Joining me now is Hugh Hewitt, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show and an MSNBC political analyst. Hugh, good to see you on this Sunday. Before I get to the Tillerson pick, you heard Bill Richardson's alarmed reaction to Donald Trump's decision to skip the daily intelligence briefings. Trump saying that he doesn't need to hear the same thing every day. What's your reaction?
I think that's a little premature by the ambassador. I listened to the interview with great interest. The daily brief has been the subject of controversy for many, many years. Ike wouldn't take them during the 52 campaign. Kennedy had a mixed reaction to them. They become more pressing as years go on. Vice President Cheney used to take it twice a day. He'd get it early in the morning, then he would take it along with President Bush during the early war years. What I heard the president-elect say is that as of right now, he's not getting new material on a daily basis and has an entire government to staff. When Mike Pompeo is the head of the CIA, and the congressman will be confirmed, and when there's a new director of national intelligence, maybe that will change, Alex. But I want to remind people, Mike Flynn, who's the incoming national security advisor, was the associate director of national intelligence. K.T. McFarland has been on the national security staff since Kissinger-Nixon years, when she was an intern in the White House. He has very competent, capable people who know intel around him, and the vice president's taking the briefs as well. He's standing up a government. He's busy. I think this is kind of fake news. That's what I think.
Well, so you're finding this to be pragmatic on his part, not dangerous?
I'm just not going to jump to any conclusions as to how well prepared the president-elect is on any issue, because right now people are just grieving the election loss. So many of the stories that I see coming around aren't about the news. I mean, there's huge news with Tillerson and Ambassador Bolton as the #2. There's huge news with Andy Puzner going to Labor and Scott Pruitt going to EPA and Kathy McMorris Rodgers going to Interior. But Democrats and some of our colleagues in the media are still obsessing over an election that's been over for 5 or 6 weeks instead of looking forward to the fact that the change that Donald Trump promised is happening at lightning speed.
What about your take on Rex Tillerson, and what do you make of concerns that are being raised about him?
I don't know Mr. Tillerson, but I've taken the last 24 hours to email around to some very reliable national security people who tell me he's strong, experienced, very smart, very competent at a global leader level, not just in Russia, but around the globe, and that he knows the world very well and will acquit himself as a very strong Secretary of State if, in fact, he is confirmed. I don't think shaking hands with Putin disqualifies you. If it did, Reagan would have been disqualified because he got along with Gorbachev pretty well. Nixon would have been disqualified because he debated Khrushchev in the kitchen. I'm amazed, in fact, Alex, at the number of instant Russia experts we have who probably couldn't say, you know, Stalin, Khrushchev, Brezhnev, Andropov, Chernenko, Gorbachev. They probably don't know anything about Russia. And in fact, I'm alarmed by what Russia did, but they have been spying and conducting espionage in this country since they put Hiss at FDR's elbow in Yalta. I mean, I'm just shocked that people are shocked that the Russians are screwing with us. And Again, I think we're talking more about Democrats getting their arms around being rejected after 8 years of President Obama on a top-to-bottom scale than we are about the real news.
How about your reaction to all the criticism of Donald Trump's selection of wealthy business people for administration roles? He talked about this on Thursday. Let's take a listen.
And, by the way, some of the people I put on to negotiate, you've been noticing, are some of the most successful people in the world. And one newspaper criticized me. Why can't they have people of modest means? Because I want people that made a fortune, because now they're negotiating with you.
Do you understand the concerns about whether the general public will be served by all these business people?
I think it's overstated. Again, Alex, if you look at Scott Pruitt, the Attorney General of Oklahoma, who's going to take over the Environmental Protection Agency, he's not a plutocrat. He's a hardworking Federalist lawyer who's an originalist, brilliant man. If you look at Kathy McMorris Rodgers, she's not a plutocrat. She just knows the Department of the Interior. She knows Washington State. She's married to a retired career naval officer. She's very definitely qualified. Andy Puzner, who's taken over Labor, came from nothing. He rose to the top of Carl's Jr. and Hardee's, CKE, because he He's a brilliant enthusiast for growth and free enterprise. He's a prophet of the franchise system. He's going to be a terrific Secretary of Labor. If you look at Nikki Haley at the United Nations, not a plutocrat. So again, I am just very happy with the team that he has put together. I'm a big Mitt Romney fan. I hope that Governor Romney ends up in Paris if Tillerson ends up being the Secretary of State. I'm very glad to see John Bolton as the number 2 at the Department of State. They'll roll over Senator Paul's personal objections. He's got a feud with John Bolton. I don't think anyone should take that very seriously. John Bolton is probably America's preeminent conservative realist in American foreign policy circles today. That's great. And if you look at, I don't know Mr. Mnuchin at Treasury at all, like Mr. Tillerson, but I have to sit back and say that the talent upgrade between Team Obama and Team Trump is the difference between my beloved Cleveland Browns and the New England Patriots, and Trump's the Patriots right now.
Wait, did you say that you want Mitt Romney to be U.S. France?
I think that Governor Romney is one of those people where, given the stress that France is under, given his longstanding ties with France, that would make a lot of sense for Mr. Trump to do. I don't think this was revenge politics. One of the memes that's going around liberal media is that Donald Trump is being ungracious. I don't think so. I think he prefers Mr. Tillerson having spent a lot of quality time with 5 or 6 very excellent candidates. He has better chemistry with Tillerson. So the whole Shakespearean Iago drama that a lot of the media has is overblown. I'm focused on the people. The people are very good. The process is very sound. The president-elect is very comfortable in his job.
Okay. I want to ask you quickly about the issue of fake news after that gunman visited the D.C. pizzeria last Sunday to investigate fake reports of a child's sex ring being rung there with some sort of ties to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton spoke out on this issue saying this.
It's now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences. This isn't about politics or partisanship. Lives are at risk. It's a danger that must be addressed, and addressed quickly.
And Hugh radio show host Charlie Sykes was talking with us yesterday about having to convince some of his listeners that certain news is fake. How have you been addressing this on your show?
Oh, anyone who's been in the business as long as Charlie and I have, I've been doing radio since 1989 and my syndicated show since 2000, deals with people who will call up and tell you that the Bilderbergers are meeting today and they're organizing the next 7 years of international events. And you gently have to inform them that, in fact, take the tinfoil off. But the real fake news problem, I actually trace to Rathergate, when Dan Rather, estimable man, fine newsman, got taken in by a hoax about George W. Bush's time in the National Guard. That's when news media credibility, never very strong, actually shattered. And now the assumption of bias in reporting is so strong that people look for bias confirmation that leads them to completely, patently false news sites. The hardest thing to curate is your own credibility. People have to develop it over years, as you have, Alex, as hopefully I have with my audience and your audience, and then not be taken in by what is, I saw the report on MS earlier today, the fellow who just made $30,000 by making up a lie and putting it out there. Unfortunately, there's a market for that, and we have to re-earn credibility every day in the media. You do it, I do it, everybody who has a camera or a microphone does it. Unfortunately, the internet makes it pretty easy for not only domestic fake news people, but fake news from abroad to manipulate. And I'm very concerned with the Russian hack. I'm very concerned that Russia pumps bad news out every single day via RT. But we have to be careful of strutting too much when our own business has so many mistakes in the past.
Well, we're going to have a report on a guy who does fake news out of Macedonia and makes a pretty penny doing it a bit later in the show. Hugh Hewitt, always good to see you. Thank you so much.